Here's the spare change 350. We deglazed the cylinder bores last weekend. Looks alright. Really the point was that I'd use a ridge reamer to get the old pistons and rings out without breaking the rings. Of course that cuts that ridge down. It also makes pretty non-uniform bore surface. So I went in there with deglazing hone, rented from my local parts store for nothing, and went in here and just broke all that glaze off and tried to clean these bores up a little bit. They're not too bad. Again, obviously not a professional machine shop hone, but not terrible either. So the guy I got this engine from, I don't know if he did it or somebody else did, but they had put new bearings and rings in this just as a driveway rebuild or whatever you want to call it. So I figured since I got the pistons and they have relatively good rings on them, look at that. I don't think those even established a wear pattern with the old cylinder bores the way he had them all glazed up. So I figured I'd break the glaze and put these back in there and see if I could get them to seat. And the point of this video is to show you that even with the work I did, these bores might not be that bad after all. I don't have a cylinder bore dial gauge, but I do have these T-bore gauges. So we go in here. I'm going to go down close to the bottom of this bore and just set it and walk it out. Feels pretty good right there. Now try to pass it in one of these micrometers. Tough to do with one hand, but I'll try. Yeah, I might not be able to do this with one hand. So I'll show you this already done, or kind of done, because you can't do this with one hand. But here's towards the top of the cylinder bore, and right here you get stuck. T-bore gauge is stuck. So this is 4.00, well, I don't know, 3, I'd say 0.0035 or 0.00375 or something. So this is about 3.5 to 3 3/4 thousandths over the 4-inch bore. And this is towards the very bottom of the bore. You get stuck right there. Call that 2 thousandths, or just over 2 thousandths, so 4.002 thousandths. So you can see that. So obviously there's some bore taper. It's loose here towards the top of the bore. As we get down in there, it's tight right there. There's a little bit of bore taper. That's fine. You know, the reason I say that's fine is because if I were to do this correctly, or the right way, I would buy a new set of pistons, have the block bored and honed, and fit the pistons. Well, these are factory cast pistons that somebody else put new rings on, and if I were to do all that, these pistons would either go into a scrap pile or a box on the shelf, or give them away to somebody else that has a block that would clean up. But the bottom line is, you know, I'm going to have some piston to bore clearance, and some piston bore clearance is what you want, but too much is not good. So next we'll measure this piston and see how much we're actually going to have and get an idea of where we're at. Alright, this piston measures out right at about exactly 4 inches. So when you do this, you want to measure about a 1/2 inch up from the bottom of the skirt and drag it across. And yeah, my mic is actually hung up there, so this might even be a touch over. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's pretty good drag right there. So that's just right at 4 inches exactly. So we'll have 2.5 thousandths clearance at the bottom of the bore, and maybe 3.5 or a little more thousandths clearance at the top of the bore. That's fine. These are cast pistons, so they won't grow as much with heat in the cylinder but they'll grow a little bit. Forged pistons, you know, you might have 4/1000 clearance piston to bore with like a 2600 series aluminum alloy forged piston, because they grow a lot more with heat. I didn't look up what the piston to bore clearance is supposed to be with these cast aluminum ones. They're just factory pistons, but it's okay. Like I say, you know, if I weren't going to use them, they just have to go into the scrap pile or get given away anyway, so might as well use them. And that means this block still has, you know, all the meat left in it. I haven't done any permanent damage to the block. We can always bore this thing a couple of times, and if I ever did choose to use this block for anything, I'd probably bore it and maybe get some 4-bolt main caps and drill it for splayed caps and do all that fun stuff. But for right now, we'll just throw these parts back into it just to see what happens. Thanks for watching.